It started on an ordinary Saturday morning when I was trimming hedges in the front yard. The air was calm, but the peace shattered as soon as I saw Karen, the infamous HOA president, stomping across the sidewalk like she owned the street. Her arms swung dramatically, and her lips were already pursed in disapproval. I braced myself. She didn't waste a second before launching into complaints. "Your lawn is an embarrassment to this neighborhood," she barked, pointing at a small patch of grass I hadn't yet mowed. "And don't even get me started on that patio chair, it's not HOA approved." I sighed, setting the trimmer down. Everyone knew Karen thrived on conflict. She wielded the HOA rulebook like a weapon, twisting every clause to justify her power trips. "Karen, my yard is fine," I told her calmly, but she only grew louder, attracting the attention of neighbors who peeked from behind their curtains. "You people think the rules don't apply to you," she spat. "If you won't fix this immediately, I'll handle it myself. Don't test me." Her words carried a chilling arrogance, as if she had absolute authority over our home. I tried to laugh it off, but deep down, I knew Karen was the type to take things too far. And sure enough, she ended her tirade with a smug smile. "Remember, I always win. You'll regret ignoring me." At that moment, I didn't realize how serious she was, or that she would soon cross a line no neighbor should ever cross. The day seemed to quiet down after Karen's tirade, but I should have known she wasn't done. Later that afternoon, my wife and I were inside, enjoying coffee and a movie, when we suddenly heard the distinct click of a key sliding into our front lock. My wife's brow furrowed instantly. We weren't expecting anyone. I jumped up, moving toward the entryway just as the door creaked open. And there she was, Karen, pushing her way into our home as if she had every right to be there. She held an HOA-issued master key in her hand, the kind board members used for emergencies like water leaks. But there was no emergency here, only arrogance. "What on earth do you think you're doing?" I demanded, my voice echoing with disbelief. Karen didn't flinch. In fact, she smirked. "As an HOA board member, I'm allowed to ensure compliance with community rules. Your yard and porch have multiple violations. If you refuse to fix them, I'll do inspections myself." My wife stood behind me, furious but silent, letting me handle it. I could feel her anger radiating. Karen's tone was dripping with superiority, as though she truly believed she had a legal right to enter our home. "You can't just walk into someone's house, Karen," I said firmly. "That's called trespassing." She folded her arms. "Call it what you want. If you won't respect the HOA, then maybe the police will make you." She then pulled out her phone and, with exaggerated dramatics, began dialing 911 right there in our foyer. As she stepped outside to wait for officers, she muttered confidently, "This is going to cost you." I glanced at my wife and chuckled quietly. Karen had no idea what she had just set in motion. Karen stood in our driveway like a self-appointed queen, pacing back and forth with her phone pressed to her ear. Her voice was shrill, carrying across the neighborhood for everyone within earshot. "Yes, officer, I need someone here immediately," she said dramatically. "These homeowners are dangerous and violating multiple HOA codes. They even tried to stop me from doing my duty as a board member." I stood near the window, watching her through the blinds, shaking my head. She wasn't just exaggerating, she was outright lying. Dangerous? The only danger I posed was overcooked barbecue on weekends. But Karen, being Karen, knew how to twist reality into something outrageous. Neighbors started drifting out onto porches, whispering among themselves. Karen clearly loved the attention, raising her voice so the entire block could hear. Yes, they yelled at me when I was inspecting their home. I felt threatened. "Please send someone quickly before this escalates." She ended the call with a triumphant look, crossing her arms and planting herself right at the end of our driveway like a guard dog. Her expression was smug, her chin lifted as though she had already won the battle. She even rehearsed her speech under her breath, mouthing words like unsafe and uncooperative. Inside, my wife and I exchanged a glance. She calmly set her coffee down and disappeared into the bedroom without a word. I knew exactly what she was doing, changing into her uniform. I grinned, struggling not to laugh. Karen thought the cavalry was on the way to rescue her from us, but little did she know, the cavalry lived here. She had unknowingly summoned the one person who would turn her little power play into the most humiliating moment of her life. A few minutes later, the sound of a car pulling into the cul-de-sac signaled the arrival Karen had been waiting for. She straightened her blouse, adjusted her hair, and marched to the curb, waving her arms as if she were directing traffic. "Over here, officer," she shouted eagerly. But instead of an unfamiliar cop stepping out, it was my wife who opened our front door. The sight made time freeze. Dressed in her crisp navy blue police uniform, badge polished to perfection, belt strapped with her gear, she radiated authority. Her presence alone could silence a crowd, and that's exactly what it did. Karen's mouth fell open mid-sentence. She had been halfway through rehearsing her complaint when the realization struck: the officer she had called was already standing in front of her, and she lived in the very house she was targeting. My wife didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Her calm, steady tone carried more weight than any of Karen's shrill rants. "Ma'am, I heard there was a complaint here," she said, eyes narrowing slightly. Karen stuttered, her earlier confidence dissolving. Well, you see, I was just. I mean, they were," her voice cracked, and the neighbors who had gathered couldn't help but snicker. My wife took a slow step forward, her presence commanding. "Funny. From what I saw, you entered my home without permission. Do you know what we call that?" Karen swallowed hard, her face draining of color. Her fingers fidgeted with the HOA key she still clutched. I didn't mean, it was just. "Ma'am," my wife said firmly, "that's trespassing." The smug queen of the HOA stood frozen, completely stripped of her power, as the entire neighborhood looked on in stunned silence. The silence outside our house stretched thick, broken only by the distant hum of traffic. Karen stood rooted in place, her cheeks pale and her bravado gone. The same neighbors who once dreaded her endless complaints now watched her squirm, their smirks hidden behind folded arms. My wife, still in full uniform, held her ground. "Karen, do you realize what you've done today?" she asked firmly. "You unlawfully used an HOA master key to enter my home. That isn't just a violation of neighborly trust, it's a crime." Karen's eyes darted around nervously, searching for sympathy from the crowd. None came. She stammered, I was only doing my duty." "You can't, I thought." "You thought wrong," my wife interrupted. "The HOA doesn't grant you legal authority to enter private property. You put yourself at risk of arrest today." She let the words sink in, her badge gleaming in the afternoon sun. The weight of it all hit Karen at once. Her shoulders slumped, and the smug confidence she carried into our home had completely evaporated. For once, she had no comeback. Just silence and shame. Finally, my wife tilted her head toward the street. "I suggest you go home before I make this official. And consider this your final warning. Try something like this again, and you won't just be embarrassed, you'll be charged." Karen's lips trembled as she muttered something unintelligible and turned on her heel. The crowd of neighbors parted like a tide, some shaking their heads, others quietly chuckling as she stormed off. My wife stepped back inside, closing the door with quiet authority. We exchanged a knowing glance, both relieved and amused. Karen's reign of terror had finally been broken, not by the HOA, not by the police she called, but by her own arrogance.